and straight away Siri's just completely turned off my computer. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Can you not see me?
Siri, yeah, Siri just decided to start talking to me. It's still doing it. There we go. Start again. Yeah, so it was
I
about
think
18.
Siri just needs to butt out and let us get on with our lives and stop answering questions and stuff all the time.
Yeah, well, the problem is I've got about five devices in here that all answer to Siri. And so you say it and they all go off at the same time. But anyway, so yeah, it was about 18 months ago, wasn't it? And back then everything was pretty normal. Now it's
Yeah,
not.
and we were both busy. We were both cracking on with our work, getting along with things and everything. And then fast forward today, and suddenly, bam! I mean, I remember hearing vaguely a rumor about some sort of lockdown and thought, no, that's just science fiction. That's never going to happen. And then here we are.
Obviously, a lot of people are working from home at the moment. And for me, you and I, we're used to that, aren't we? It's what we do.
Yep. Yep.
For a lot of people, it isn't at all, and understandably, they're a little bit nervous about it. And I think you've got some tips which well, might
Well,
be of use to people.
I've got my grand plan. I say plan in the roughest of terms of six areas that I think that we should all be considering as business owners, particularly if, like us, you're directors of limited companies and you're getting absolutely no help whatsoever, it seems, from anybody. So, tip number one is face the reality. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of people that I've been in touch with have been struggling with a little bit. It's not going to go away. We can grizzle and complain about it as much as we want to. But once you face the reality, there's that big step that I think people have got to take of what's the plan? I mean, do you have a plan going forward?
I did, and then it's changed. I've still got the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
that plan still exists. I think, like yourself, I count myself very lucky to still be working at the moment. I've been very busy, as we've just been discussing. We've both had a lot of work still to do, whereas a lot of people haven't got that. A lot of people have either been left on furlough for indefinitely, or unfortunately have lost their jobs. So I feel very, very, very lucky to still be working. But it has changed insofar as I think it's planning day by day rather than looking further ahead, which I hate. I hate that because I'm the sort of person that prefers to look much further ahead and think about what I can do in the future. But I've kind of got used to it now. It's the kind of thing where it's literally working on today's to do list, thinking a bit about tomorrow. Although having said that, I think this week there's been a little bit of a sea change in that I've had some more positive conversations with people. And people are starting to think, well, we've got to start talking more readily about the future, particularly when it comes to marketing, and that's quite encouraging.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. And you mentioned it a second ago, this point about once you get beyond facing the reality and understanding what your plan is, whether it's getting in touch with your clients, talking to people about what your current situation is, that takes us on to point number two, which is evaluate the roles and tasks that you've got to deal with. And quite rightly, as you point out, a lot of that can be day to day because we don't quite know what's happening and where we're going from here. Some of it could be, who knows, potentially a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks into the future. Working on the basis that we're certainly locked down for that period of time, it gives us an opportunity to sit and think about our businesses and say, okay, if I can't do certain things because I'm facing that reality, what can I actually do? What are my day-to-day roles and tasks? Perhaps what's impeded by the current lockdown. I mean, of course, there are certain things we can't do. We can't go out and meet with people. We can't speak to groups unless we're doing it online. But we can start getting our work lists in order, start thinking about our finances if we haven't done so already, start looking for different areas of help where we might be able to get some iota of support. So
Yeah.
I think we've got, one and two, we're on to evaluate roles and tasks. Number three, which you can't get around really in this day and age, is evaluating your IT status.
Yeah, no,
You know,
definitely.
what software have you got? What kind of equipment have you got? What level of connectivity have you got? Maybe people haven't even got experience in doing the kind of thing that we're doing back and forth because everybody suddenly now has got to become an expert in communicating online, haven't they?
They have, yeah. Although I think one thing I'd say on that is that I think it's not worth trying to find the perfect way to do a video conference because there isn't, particularly when everyone's doing it from home. And as you say, not everyone is au fait with how best to use Skype, the best, whether or not to use your phone or to use your laptop like we are. But that's half the fun of it, really. I think as long as people don't spend too much time trying to get the best image quality or sound quality. As long as you just have the meeting that you've got to have, you'll get things done quicker. I think also it's probably promoting shorter but more regular meetings, which I prefer. So rather than having long, drawn out hour, 2 hour long meetings, I think I've noticed that people have been switching to 15-minute 20-minute chats, even shorter sometimes, but doing it more regularly, because obviously that gets around the whole isolation thing and keeping in touch with other human beings, all the rest of it. But it also makes you more productive because you're not spending hours in a boardroom waffling on and getting nowhere.
But that isn't that the crux of it all? Because it's just like real life. What's the point of the meeting?
Exactly.
And I've been speaking with probably 2 or 3 bigger clients, universities, corporate clients, those kinds of people. And it's been really interesting because, as we've been discussing, they're all trying to get a grip on the technology. As you say, is the picture clear enough? Is the sound quality good enough? What kind of, am I getting pixelation or lag or anything like that? And after about 2 hours of discussion about how terrible everything is, they suddenly realize that between technology and discussing the facts and issues of the day, they've gotten to a point where the whole purpose of the meeting has been lost.
Yeah.
So I think that agendas for discussion and having purpose for meetings is really, really important. And there's that element of keeping in touch with people, and it is important to maintain contacts just for your own sanity. But at the same time, isn't it good if you can be speaking to your clients or your suppliers or your colleagues or whatever with a purpose?
Completely.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to get in touch with you. And that kind of brings me on to the next point, which by my count's number 4 here, which is, do communicate with your clients and your suppliers and anyone else that's connected with your business, because I think certainly in the early stages, and although it's been weeks, it still feels as though we're somewhat in the early stages. I think it's useful for people to know what your position is, what services you can provide to them, what help you might need in terms of delivering a different set of work outputs, because we're all operating in very unusual circumstances, clearly.
Yeah.
And I guess as well, I mean, the other thing which isn't talked about so much is that if someone goes quiet for a very long time without wanting to impose, you don't necessarily know whether they're ill.
That's true.
There could be an issue if someone just goes still and silent. What's actually happening at their end? Are they okay?
Yeah, and actually, I mean, obviously, people's health is far more important than anything, always. But you can relate that to businesses as well. And we've seen instances of companies completely cutting or slashing their marketing budgets. It's just not a good idea. And obviously, we're going to say that because we're marketeers. But it is true. There was a story with Airbnb. I don't know if you saw it recently. I think I put it on LinkedIn, where they decided to slash their marketing budget by 800 million. And funny enough, I was listening to their CEO. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a really good podcast with him on a podcast called Masters of Scale, which is definitely worth a listen. And they were interviewing him, and for about 10 or 15 minutes, I was really, really impressed, because he was listing all the things they did, all the things they did to kind of support hosts and some of the tough decisions they made. And then he mentioned this £800 million cut in marketing, and he just lost me at that point, because I thought, why on earth are you doing that? And going back to what you were saying a moment ago about the health of people, it's the same thing with businesses. If your business isn't talking anymore because you've stopped, your social media output or blogging or whatever it might be, then people will start to wonder if you exist. So it's just about a different message at the moment. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's switching perhaps from a more sales-oriented approach for a lot of businesses and companies to the messaging that underlines who you are as an organization. I mean, maybe some organizations that I've heard good PR about, they're actually doing things to help. They're 3D printing PPE, or they're raising money for a particular cause, or at the very least, they're offering a level of support and praise for people in the NHS, or even messaging their own customers to say, look, listen to the government advice, stay at home, follow the protocols that we're meant to be following.
Yep.
Maybe they're a retail outlet like a food supplier or something like that who still are open, but even when I've had to go along to those, I've been impressed by the ones who are clearly implementing the social distancing.
Yep.
I mean, I was at a supermarket recently where there was a member of staff sort of like, handing out little blobs of hand sanitizer to people as they were going in and coming out of the store. And that tells me something about those businesses because, as you say, even if they're not actively marketing in a particular way, they're still helping communicate that they're a responsible organization who cares about their customers, who cares about their staff.
Yep.
Maybe some of them are furloughing for obvious reasons, but maybe some of them are providing more of an online service where that's applicable to the nature of their business. But I couldn't agree with you more, Mark. If those companies, if certain companies go completely silent, they very much go to the back of your mind. I mean, let's face it. There's two outcomes here. Well, probably or potentially a combination of the two. One is that we are like this for the foreseeable future. I mean, we're talking about 3 weeks, but who knows? Some people say it could be a year. It could be 2 years. I don't know. The other possibility is that things begin to resolve and we come out of the situation.
Yeah.
The combination could be is that life changes in a very different way for how, somewhere between those 2 points going forward. And also which businesses are going to survive.
Yeah.
Because if you go completely quiet, you're almost just out of it, basically. It's like you may have just shut down permanently for all I know, and in some cases all I care, We've got to keep talking to each other on a personal level and a business level as well. Now, I've gotten to point number 5, if I can go back to my list, if that's okay. But the next one was, and I think this is a really interesting one, almost whatever kind of business you are or whatever operation you have, and that is to review the success of how working remotely is going for you.
Yep.
And that I think is one of those longer term changes, because there's no two ways about it. There's going to be a lot of businesses out there who are thinking, well, do we need all of these expensive premises? How have we performed with people operating from home offices or whatever? That isn't going to suit everybody, but particularly with cost cutting and trying to sort of like, renew your profitability going forward, there's got to be a way where there's going to be more of this interaction through online going forward. I don't think there's any two ways about it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how things are going to change, but I think they will change quite considerably all round, really. And particularly in industries where they perhaps didn't think they'd be doing more working from home or more of this kind of thing. And I think it's going to be fascinating how we come out of this in that respect. But I think it is going to change things, definitely.
Well, a lot of my client base are in the higher education sector, and clearly they're in a really, really odd situation at the moment because everyone's running around and flapping and trying to switch to online systems, online teaching, online marking. How on earth are they going to cope with the international student cohort who provide a lot of the finance for universities? But of course, a big part of that is the experience of coming to study on a campus in a UK country. So how on earth is that all going to go forward? And then I've got another client I'm working on a piece with just at the moment who is absolutely the opposite. He's very much against online learning and saying that business schools are going to face a real problem because everyone and their sister, he's telling me, are trying to race to produce more and more online courses, leadership courses for business schools.
Yep.
And he just says it's just not going to work. You don't get the nuances that you get from face to face, the dialogue, the flexibility, and he can't see that happening. So it's very, I want to say, interesting times. So I'm going to try and stay positive about all of this, right?
Yeah. Well, I think he's definitely got a point, but I think it would be daft to kind of throw all of your eggs into the remote learning basket, really, partly because it may not change. Things may get back to normal quite quickly. I think it would just be that people have realised that there are some benefits to working this way and doing this kind of remote stuff. It's going to be a balance, isn't it, between the normal way of working and bringing in what people have learned during this lockdown period. I think, and that's quite exciting, actually. I think, like you say, being positive about it, that I do find that quite exciting about the future.
Sure. Okay. And then, right, you ready for number six? This is my
Yeah,
final point.
go for it.
Okay, so this for me is just about us as people. It's about maintaining our physical and mental health and, looking at human contact where and when you can actually have it. Because we're talking primarily here about businesses and how they should go forward. But at the end of the day, nothing matters more than our own health. So
Yeah,
besides taking the advice that the government's laying down about social distancing and hand washing and all of those other sensible precautions, it's a bit like you and I have talked about previously, having that workout, in the
yeah,
morning,
yeah.
going for a run, hitting the home gym, walking the dog, doing the high intensity training that's all over the TV and stuff at the moment. I don't know. I'm finding that that's absolutely well. I've always done that kind of thing, but I'm finding it's more crucial than ever. How about you?
Yeah, same as you. Yeah, like you say, I think we're quite similar like that. And I've always spent a lot of time going to the gym or, like you say, walking the dog, etc. I've done it. Funny enough, I've done more exercise since we've been in lockdown. So I've been running every day and continuing to walk with the dog and what have you. And that's yeah, I can't recommend that enough. I think if you're having a bad day or if you get up and you feel a bit grumpy or whatever, even just a half hour run around the block or just a 15-minute walk will completely revitalise your brain and your body and all the rest of it. And it does have a tangible impact on your productivity and just your ability to get on with the day, really. So that's above everything, like you say. If one thing comes out of this is for people to get more active and realise the benefits that offers your working life, then fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I think that's our top tips for all you folks out there. Sorry, the dog's
Sounds
coming to
good.
say hello to me again. And here he is, Frank.
Here he is.
Say
Hello,
hi.
Frank.
Right, there's a pair
Start
of
star of the
ears.
show. We'll get him saying something. He said he had a few things to say, didn't he? But we'll get him on the mic next time.
Yeah, that's it. Some good woofing from Frank. But yeah, so I think that's it for our chat basically this week, Mark. But it's awesome to be in touch with you, buddy. I'm glad that you're keeping healthy and everything over there, and I think that's the message to everyone going forward. Stay safe, wash your hands, stay inside and at home as much as you can. That's what we're meant to be doing, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Sage advice, definitely. Same here. Speak soon.
All right, cheers. All the
Cheers.
best.